Sad news from Hollywood tonight. Actor Matthew Perry has died. TMZ reports the actor was found dead today at a Los Angeles area home of an apparent drowning in a backyard jacuzzi. Authorities told the outlet that no drugs were found at the scene and no foul play is suspected. Perry is most known for his role as Chandler Bing on the 90s hit sitcom Friends. He also starred in films like Fools Rush In and 17 Again. He wrote a memoir released last year that detailed his struggles with addiction and serious health challenges. Perry was 54 years old.
October of last year, law enforcement, my office, and our partners represented on this stage began an in-depth, wide-ranging investigation. That investigation has revealed a broad, underground criminal network responsible for distributing large quantities of ketamine to Mr. Perry and others. This network included a live-in assistant, various go-betweens, 2 medical doctors, and a major source of drug supply known as, quote, the ketamine queen. We charged 5 defendants in this matter. These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways. In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. I'm going to talk about the indictment, the allegations, and the charges in more detail. On October 28, 2023, Mr. Perry was found deceased in his home. An autopsy was conducted following his death. That autopsy showed that he had died due to the acute effects of ketamine. Ketamine is a controlled substance. It has some legitimate uses, but it is also used illegally. It is used by people seeking to disassociate from reality. It can cause serious health effects, serious health problems, including loss of consciousness, including spikes in blood pressure, and including respiratory issues that can deprive the brain of oxygen. For that reason, it is a drug that must be administered by medical professionals, and the patient must be monitored closely. That did not occur here. This investigation focused on who supplied the ketamine to Mr. Perry. As many of you know, Mr. Perry struggled with addiction in the past. And on many occasions, he sought help for his addiction issues. The investigation revealed that in the fall of 2023, Mr. Perry fell back into addiction, and these defendants took advantage to profit for themselves. The 2 lead defendants in this case are defendants Salvador Plasencia and defendant Jasvin Sanya. First, I'll talk about defendant Plasencia. Defendant Plasencia was a medical doctor. He worked with another medical doctor, defendant Mark Chavez, to obtain ketamine. He then worked with Mr. Perry's live-in assistant, defendant Kenneth Iwamasa, to distribute that ketamine to Mr. Perry. Over 2 months, from September to October 2023, they distributed approximately 20 vials of ketamine to Mr. Perry in exchange for $55,000 in cash.
All right. Welcome back inside the law. Everyone, I'm your host, Philip Holloway. Of course, this is the LawTube channel where we learn things about the real justice system, not the justice system that you might think that we have, but the one that we really have. And today we're going to be taking a look at a federal indictment, and we're going to talk about what we can learn about how the federal investigation may have worked and what it probably looked like. And of course, we're doing so in the context of, as we always do, cases, real cases that are in the news and that you may have already heard about or have some knowledge of. But we're going to see what we can learn about. But of course, we couldn't do this show without mentioning the the scourge of addiction, it is something that I'm sure has touched the lives of every person hearing my voice right now, at one time or another, and it probably will again, whether it's yourself personally, friends, family, loved ones. Nobody escapes the ravages of drug addiction. Now, I want to start by just pointing out that, of course, it's a tragedy that Matthew Perry lost his life, but it's also a tragedy every single time anybody loses their life due to addiction and due to being, as I think Perry was, preyed upon by people who are greedy, who want to line their pockets, and don't care about the harm that they're doing when they peddle in these very, very, very deadly and dangerous substances. So whether it's a homeless person on the street, or someone who's famous in Hollywood, or uh, anybody else, everybody's life is the same. But what we see in these cases involving high profile individuals, we see law enforcement seemingly go the extra mile to track down the source of the drugs, right? And so it sometimes looks like we have multiple tiers of justice. One tier for people who are famous, like Matthew Perry, who succumbed to this, and maybe another tier for people who didn't get the same treatment. And that's a fair point. I've heard it lots over the last couple of days. Yesterday, you may have watched me with Eric Hunley on his show, Laid Back Law, and that was some of the discussion that he and I were having yesterday. Is like, it's this double tier of law enforcement response, or maybe triple tier. But in any event, we can still use what's happened with Mr. Perry, and we can learn how this thing happens. And what we see a lot of times with high profile individuals, people who are wealthy, is they have a lot of people in their orbit, right? People that want to get close to them, people that want to get their money, whatever reasons. They have a lot of people that enable their addiction. And so it's almost like they're trapped in their own personal prison, because the people that are around them are really not there to help them. They seem to want to enable. And we saw this a lot we saw it with Prince when he died. We saw it with Michael Jackson. And Matthew Perry is just the latest. Now, there weren't many of us who saw the news and the clip that I played at the very beginning of this live stream, which was the news reports, and it said, no foul play is expected. Well, I think all of us might have suspected at the time that there was more to it, and we thought maybe this had something to do with his well-known problems with substance abuse and addiction. And come to find out, it did. Now, these people, we're about to get into looking at what they're charged with. But before I do that, I want to again say welcome to everyone who's here. Thanks to my moderators who are helping keep the chat straight. Thanks to the members who are showing up. I love to see everybody in the chat. I'm going to be switching back and forth between certain screens, and I may not always be able to see the chat, but of course, super chats, thank you for those in advance. Super chats always go to the top of the list. They get an automatic star, so I see them. They are flagged on my screen, and I also have super moderator Transplanted Texan is able to pick out certain questions or comments. She's also going to help me star things that might be worth pointing out. And I will pause, because this indictment, we're going to go through all of it, but we will pause to look at the questions and to hopefully take some questions as we move through this. So before we get into the actual indictment, I want to share with you, this is from the press release that preceded that press conference a couple of days ago. Now, I'm not going to read it all to you, but you can kind of look at it here yourself. But it is worth pointing out that, like here on the top page of the first page, it refers to some of the defendants. Two of them are licensed physicians. And it says a licensed physician and an alleged drug dealer, San Fernando Valley drug dealer, were arrested today in connection with the death of Matthew Perry. There's 5 total defendants. The ones that were arrested this week are the ones that are in this particular 18 count. It's called a superseding indictment, and I will talk more about what that means. But you had Jasmine Sangha, also known as the Ketamine Queen of North Hollywood. I've got a picture of her. So let's see what, we switch back over. Let me see what she looks like. I can share that with you guys. This is from publicly available sources. We've got pictures of all of these individuals. Here we have the Ketamine Queen. That's Jasmine Sangha, also known as Ketamine Queen, arrested for her role in Matthew Perry's death. Okay. Dr. Salvador Plasencia, Dr. P, as he's called. Here's Dr. P. You can take a look, you can look what he looks like. So Dr. P was arrested this week. Goes on to say in this press release that those two individuals are charged with one count of conspiracy and also to distribute ketamine. Sangha is charged with one count of maintaining a drug-involved premises. It's a drug house, basically, a stash house. One count of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine, and one count of possession with intent to distribute ketamine, and 5 counts of the actual distribution of ketamine. The superseding indictment alleges that her distribution of ketamine began on October 24th, 2023, caused Perry's death. It's one of the direct proximate causes of his death. She's also charged in 7 additional counts of distribution. Goes on to say there are other defendants. We've got Eric Fleming, 54, of Hawthorne, who pleaded guilty on August 8th. Now, you might ask, how can he have already pleaded guilty? Well, he was apparently cooperating, and let's see if we can see what Fleming looks like. This is Fleming, also a director, I understand, in Hollywood, but he pleaded guilty before this indictment came down. So that means that he's cooperating. He's already pleaded guilty to something called an information, which is not an indictment. It's simply a document filed by the prosecutor. He waived grand jury, so we know that he's got a plea deal. Now, we don't know the terms of it, but I can tell you from what I can see here, that means he has a plea deal. All right. So we have Eric Fleming, age 54. We have Kenneth Iwamasa. And he was basically Matthew Perry's live-in assistant, right? Servant, live-in assistant, whatever you want to call him. He was the one who it will turn out is accused of administering the lethal doses, the final lethal doses, that the straw that broke the camel's back that killed Matthew Perry, one of the enablers, as it were. And then we have Dr. Mark Chavez, 54, who is also a physician in San Diego. Let's take a look at Chavez. There he is. He's agreed, he hasn't pled guilty yet, but he has agreed to plead guilty, according to this press release, to one count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. Chavez admitted in his plea agreement to selling ketamine to Dr. Plasencia, Dr. P, including ketamine that he had diverted from his former ketamine clinic. Chavez also obtained additional ketamine specifically to transfer to Dr. Plasencia by making false representations to a wholesale ketamine distributor by submitting a fraudulent description in the name of a former patient and without that patient's consent. All right, so this press release is out there. It's available for everybody to see. It's publicly available. I won't read it all to you, but I will point out, as this thing does at the very end, it points out what would happen in the event of a conviction. If convicted of all charges, Sangha, the ketamine queen, would face mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in federal prison and a statutory maximum sentence of life imprisonment. So what that means is that according to the law, the statute as it's worded, the judge cannot give less than 10 years, even if the judge wants to. It's a mandatory minimum sentence. And in the federal system, there is really effectively no parole. Now, she could also get up to a sentence of up to life in prison. Okay. So I guess she's not cooperating to the extent that the others are. So who knows what's going to happen with her, but she's facing a very, very long potential federal prison sentence. Dr. Plasencia would face up to 10 years in federal prison for each ketamine related count, and he's got several, and up to 20 years in prison for each records falsification count. So he also is facing severe penalties. And then it goes on to say the servant, personal aide, whatever you call him, Iwamasa and Fleming, who is, I guess, a Hollywood director and associate of Matthew Perry, they will face up to 15 years and 25 years, respectively, when they are sentenced. So they have already pleaded guilty. Now, Dr. Chavez, it says, has been charged by information, which is the alternative to a grand jury indictment. And it specifically says this is pursuant to plea agreement, and he will be arraigned on August 30th. At sentencing, Chavez will face up to 10 years in prison. All right. So there you have it. We've got, those are the defendants, and those are some of the overview of some of the penalties that they are facing. All right. So before we get into the actual wording of the indictment, I want to say welcome again to everyone who's here. Please do me a favor, hit that like button if you haven't. It helps other people who might be interested in this content find this channel. That would help a lot. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, and tell anybody you might know who might be interested in this kind of content to also please subscribe. You know, we're not going to we've been looking at lately at certain trials that are underway. And I said just very recently in a stream, I'm like, but we're not going to limit ourselves just covering one trial or one case. You know, we've got other things that we can learn from. And this, you know, this tragedy is just one of the latest, but we're going to have other trials too. So there's going to be a lot. If you find the content interesting and educational, and if you want to learn something about the real justice system, this is the right place. So please consider subscribing if you haven't done so. All right, I see the folks are already in the chat. The chat is rolling, and so you guys are well taken care of by the moderator. So let's go ahead, and I want to switch gears. I want to share the screen, which has the indictment. This is one of the charging documents. Now, there are others, but this is the most recent one. This is the grand jury indictment. So we're going to start with this because this one has all of the really detailed sort of a description of what all happened. This is a very thorough, at least thoroughly written. And obviously, all these people are presumed to be innocent, except maybe the ones who have pleaded guilty. But nevertheless, the allegations here are very specific. Again, this is the indictment. We're in the Central District of California. So the way federal courts work, you have federal districts all throughout the United States, and then within any district, within any state, you have districts, right? So in this case, it's the Central District of California, right? So there's a northern district. I'm sure there's a southern district, but this takes place, and it's going to be geographically close to where the crimes allegedly occurred. So that's why we're in the Central District of California. Here we go. Jasmine Sangha, also known as the Ketamine Queen. Can you imagine being on a jury trial and having the name Ketamine Queen listed in the indictment, and the jury right out of the gate, I think is going to get the flavor of what they're accusing you of, being the Ketamine Queen. And then, of course, Dr. P, Salvador Plasencia, conspiracy to distribute ketamine. Now, conspiracy, let me take a minute to talk about that. Ketamine, conspiracy is a certain type of a crime, and the conspiracy is a completed crime once there is an agreement with somebody else to do a crime, and then a substantial step taken in furtherance of the object of the conspiracy. So it's not quite enough to have the agreement. Okay, we're going to agree to go rob this bank, but unless somebody actually does something to effectuate the object of that conspiracy, like goes and buys a ski mask, for example, or starts driving the car towards the bank, once that step is taken, the crime of conspiracy is complete, even if you back out later. Okay, you can be guilty of conspiracy without actually completing the object of the conspiracy. All right, so there's your Criminal Law 101 lesson for today. And then we've got the distribution of ketamine, possession with intent to distribute, and the other charges that we reference. Count one refers to the Ketamine Queen. She's a resident of North Hollywood. And They refer to her North Hollywood residence as the, quote, Senga Stash House, okay, to store, package, and distribute narcotics, including ketamine and methamphetamine. I don't yet know how meth plays into Matthew Perry's death, if at all, but I have reason to think that I think when they were maybe searching that place, they found these drugs. Whether they were involved in Mr. Perry's death or not, she was apparently found to be in possession and intending to distribute meth. Dr. Salvador Placencia and co-conspirator Mark Chavez, who is the one he's got a deal. He's not been arraigned yet. It's coming up, but he's got a plea deal. Co-conspirator Mark Chavez were medical doctors. Placencia and Chavez previously applied for and obtained their DEA licenses to prescribe narcotics, ketamine being a Schedule III controlled substance. It's FDA approved for general anesthesia during surgical procedures. Okay, this is what we're dealing with. This is something that, can you imagine if you've ever been under general anesthesia, can you imagine being in that state or going into that state knowing that there wasn't going to be a medical professional to be looking over you all the time that you were under anesthesia? Mind-blowing. Due to the medical risk associated with ketamine, it's widely accepted in the medical community that a healthcare professional is required to monitor a patient who's just been given ketamine. It's necessary for the healthcare professional to have access to life-saving equipment, including a defibrillator, supplemental oxygen, equipment to monitor the heart rate and breathing, and other medication designed to ensure patient safety. All the things that you would expect from an anesthesiologist or perhaps a nurse anesthetist if you are having surgery. That's what they're there for. Senga, if I'm saying that right. Anyway, the ketamine queen, let's just call her the queen, similarly knew that the unsupervised and improper use of ketamine can be deadly. And they say, here's why. Because in August of 2019, she sold ketamine to a customer, victim CM, who died of an overdose within a day of that drug deal. As a result, a family member of victim CM informed the queen of the death in a text message stating, quote, "The ketamine you sold my brother killed him. It's listed as the cause of death." And so within days of receiving that text, what does she do? According to this indictment, she confirmed that ketamine can kill by conducting a Google search. Quote, "Can ketamine be listed as a cause of death?" Okay, so she has actual knowledge. They put this in here because they want to make the point to the jury. The jury will read this or hear this. They want to make the point that she had consciousness, actual awareness that what she was doing could cause the death of the people she's selling this to. Okay. And that's got to be an aggravating factor if I ever saw one when it comes time to imposing any sentence if I were the judge. Co-conspirator Kenneth Iwamasa was also a resident of LA County and a live-in personal assistant to Matthew Perry. He had never received medical training, as it says, and he knew little, if anything, about administering or treating patients, as defendant Dr. P well knew. Co-conspirator Eric Fleming was an acquaintance of the victim, MP, and a resident of Hawthorne, California. Placencia and Fleming and Chavez, so that's the director, the personal assistant, the alleged drug dealing director, and the two doctors were aware that Matthew Perry had a history of drug abuse and addiction, and that Matthew Perry had sought on multiple occasions assistance to treat his drug addiction and to maintain his sobriety. So anytime you're going to charge a conspiracy, you've got to specify this. We've talked about due process here inside the law in many contexts. You've got to put people on notice of what they're accused of. So if you've got to have an object of a conspiracy, if that's part of the essential elements, you've got to put in your pleading. You've got to plead what the object is. And so here they do. Beginning on a date not exactly known, but continuing until on or at least October 30th of 2023 in LA County. And they use that language in LA County because they've got to prove venue, right? Venue is one of the essential elements. And they also have to prove that it's within the jurisdiction of this court, specifically the Central District. That's why it's worded the way it is. Placencia and Sanka conspired with co-conspirators, Iwamasa, Fleming, and Chavez. And if you need a whiteboard, I don't blame you. I need one too. But I've been looking at this most of the day today, and so that's why I showed you their pictures. Hopefully hopefully you can remember who they are and what their role is. But we'll keep coming back to it. So we've got defendants Plasencia, Sangha. They conspired with co-conspirators Iwamasa, Fleming, and Chavez to knowingly and intentionally distribute ketamine, a controlled Schedule 3, in violation of the law. Now, the manner and means of the conspiracy, how did they pull this off? The conspiracy was to be accomplished in substance as follows. Iwamasa would communicate with other co-conspirators, including Plasencia and Fleming, about buying ketamine to distribute to Perry. The co-conspirators would use encrypted messaging applications and coded language to discuss drug deals, including referring to bottles of ketamine as Dr. Pepper, cans, and bots. After discussing ketamine orders with co-conspirator Iwamasa, that's the live-in assistant, Fleming and Plasencia would communicate with their ketamine sources of supply, including defendant Sangha and Dr. Chavez, about inventory, price, availability of ketamine to sell to Iwamasa, and then, of course, to be injected into Matthew Perry. Sangha would operate and maintain the Sangha Stash House in North Hollywood, which defendant Sangha would use to store, package, and distribute narcotics, including ketamine, to co-conspirator Fleming, so that Fleming could then in turn sell it to Matthew Perry. Iwamasa would meet with the co-conspirators, including Plasencia and Fleming, to purchase the ketamine for Matthew Perry. Plasencia would then distribute ketamine to co-conspirator Iwamasa and victim MP outside the usual course of his medical practice and without a legitimate medical purpose, including by teaching Iwamasa how to shoot Matthew Perry up with ketamine. And he sold the ketamine to him, and he actually would inject it himself on occasion without the proper safety equipment and without failing to properly monitor the victim MP, Matthew Perry, after Plasencia injected victim MP with ketamine. I want to pause this just a moment to check in on the live chat. I see you guys are really busy, and also welcome to everyone who may be just joining us. If you weren't with us at the beginning, we're going through the indictment of the 5 co-conspirators accused in collectively, causing the death of Matthew Perry through a pretty bizarre and elaborate drug dealing scam. Also, wanted to take a minute to at least see if I could recognize a super chat and answer a quick question. And then we will get back to the indictment here in just a minute. Thank you, by the way, Peter, for the super sticker. That helps me grow the channel and provide additional content. Thank you very much. Truth Seeker has this question. Will there be any other charge or charges adding, like the doctor that witnessed Matthew Perry having a bad reaction and leaving more for the assistant to give him? Okay, we're going to get to that because I think the answer to your question is coming up as I go through this indictment. So stand by. If it's not answered, we'll keep the question. We'll come back to it. And thank you, Senior Chief, for gifting the Inside the Law memberships. This support is very, very much appreciated. Thank you so much. All right. Moving right along. Using the instructions and syringes provided by the defendant Plasencia, Iwamasa would inject victim Matthew Perry with the ketamine that was sold to co-conspirator Iwamasa by defendant Plasencia. Sold by Plasencia, Fleming, I guess, and the ketamine queen, Sangha. On October 28th, 2023, using syringes provided by the defendant Plasencia, co-conspirator Iwamasa injected Matthew Perry with multiple doses of ketamine he received from co-conspirator Fleming and defendant Sangha, resulting in the death and serious bodily injury of Matthew Perry. So that's the object of the conspiracy and the end result, but we've got to plead. By that, I mean they have to include in the indictment, they have to plead what the overt acts are. So let's go through those. And it says all these are in furtherance of the conspiracy, okay? The first sort of category of these overt acts deals with Plasencia and Chavez and their sort of sub-conspiracy to sell ketamine to Matthew Perry. Number one, on September 30th, now if you look at these dates, by the way, this is all basically in the month leading up to Matthew Perry's death. And as we go through these, pay attention and you'll see that this describes in great detail a life that just you can just tell that the end is coming, because he's so far apparently into the depths of this addiction that there's almost no coming back from it. But what these people, these vultures, did to him during this time is just reprehensible, because they knew that this was risky. They knew his situation. They knew his condition was it was just bad. I mean, he was in a really, really bad place in terms of his addiction. So he was, in that sense, very frail, and they took advantage of him for greed. So here we go. September 30th, about a month before his death, after learning that Matthew Perry was interested in obtaining ketamine, Placencia contacted his buddy, Dr. Chavez, about buying ketamine so that he could sell it to Matthew Perry. Number two, in text messages, they discussed how much to charge Matthew Perry for ketamine, stating, "I wonder how much this moron will pay. Let's find out." I mean, the callousness of these people. And it's all about money. It's about greed. "I wonder how much this moron will pay. Let's find out." They deserve, if they're guilty of this, they deserve everything they've got coming to them. Number three, co-conspired on the same day. Chavez confirmed he was willing to sell ketamine to Placencia and then sent a photograph of some ketamine lozenges that Chavez had previously obtained by writing a fraudulent description in somebody else's name by the initials VB without that, I guess, without that patient's consent. And so zooming in on this, you've got 200 milligram troches where you dissolve them under the tongue. And it looks to be in this photograph about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 9 of those. Maybe there's more, but that's just an example of when they were just getting started. You can see that this is not the first rodeo for Dr. Chavez, who apparently has written fraudulent prescriptions for this stuff before. Number four, Chavez and Placencia arranged to meet in Costa Mesa so that Placencia could obtain liquid ketamine and the fraudulent prescription from Chavez that we just showed, September 30th, same day. They met, and it says Chavez met with Placencia and sold Placencia at least 4 vials of liquid ketamine and the ketamine lozenges that we just saw in that picture. In addition, gloves and syringes. Okay, the gloves and syringes needed to inject. So now we're getting into a part of the conspiracy that deals with Placencia leaves ketamine with Iwamasa, the domestic assistant, and teaches Iwamasa how to inject ketamine. So I think this may go to the question that was asked. September 30th, same day, in text messages to Matthew Perry, Placencia confirmed that he planned to leave vials of ketamine with Matthew Perry for self-administration, stating, quote, "I will give you your first dose if you would like, and I will leave the supplies with you." After injecting Matthew Perry with ketamine on September 30th, he left Matthew Perry's residence. It says defendant Placencia gave instructions to Iwamasa about how to inject ketamine, left ketamine and syringes with Iwamasa so that Iwamasa could shoot Matthew Perry up with this ketamine. Number 8. Here we go. Iwamasa paid the defendant, I'm sure this was Perry's money, but paid the defendant approximately Placencia $4,500 in cash for the ketamine referenced in Overt Act number 7. Same day, September 30th, 2023. Placencia sends text messages to Chavez, describes the meeting with victim Matthew Perry, said it's like a bad movie, and confirming that Placencia would send Chavez his cut of the payment very soon. I guess you can't just send the cash. You want to meet up, I guess, and give it to him in person. So here we are, early October. This deals with Placencia, who sells additional ketamine to Iwamasa. All right, so we moved into another phase. Overt Act number 10 on October 2nd. Iwamasa sent Placencia a text message in coded language stating that co-conspirator Iwamasa wanted to buy more ketamine, not just injection sessions. It says, quote, "We want to end up with 8 bottles of Dr. Pepper, not just 8 sessions." So they want it themselves. Overt Act number 11, Placencia confirmed Understood. Number 12, on October 2nd, same day, ahead of the planned meeting, between Placencia and Matthew Perry, defendant Placencia told Chavez, quote, "If today goes well, we may have repeat business." This goes to their state of mind, their motive. Their motive is to make money. They want repeat business. They know this is illegal. They know it's deadly. They know it's dangerous, and they do not care. All they care about is lining their pockets. That's it. Overt Act number 13 on October 2nd, same day. Chavez discussed selling ketamine to Matthew Perry, stating, "You should sell him the troches," referring to the fraudulent prescription pack. Same day, Placencia travels to Perry's residence to inject him with ketamine and sell additional ketamine, including the troches, the lozenges. On the same day, Placencia updated Chavez about his visit to Matthew Perry's residence, including stated he intended to administer 360 milligrams over the span of approximately an hour. Now, I think that's a really high dose. Same day, Placencia injected Matthew Perry with ketamine and sold Iwamasa liquid ketamine and lozenges from the fraudulent prescription in exchange for cash. Same day, in text messages with Chavez, Placencia says to him, he's discussing needing additional ketamine to sell to victim MP. So they are ramping up their operation here. It's like things are going well. We've got ourselves an in. He's a cash cow. Let's keep this going. Go ahead and let's start lining up some additional ketamine to sell to Matthew Perry moving forward. On October 2nd, same day, in order to obtain more ketamine to sell to Matthew Perry, Chavez goes ahead and places an order for 10 vials of ketamine from a wholesale distributor of controlled substances. And because he's got that DEA license, he can do that. But how does he do that? He can't just say we're buying this because we're trying to sell it illegally. So he submitted a license authorization form to a different wholesale distributor, number 2, for the purpose of obtaining additional ketamine to sell to Matthew Perry. The license authorization form contained false statements, including the statement that it will not be sold to a third party, distributed, or used for any other purposes. So when you lie on that federal form, you've committed another federal crime. They're just digging their hole deeper. I think what this tells me, Chavez is the one he's basically getting all this, according to the indictment, from these wholesale distributors, a lot of it. We haven't got to the ketamine queen yet, but we see this other situation where they're apparently getting this other quantities from wholesalers fraudulently, but that's where they're getting it. And I'm also reading between the lines because I see that Chavez is only facing a maximum of 10 years according to his plea deal. And so what this tells me is that despite Chavez committing all these additional offenses, and despite his role in all this, he's facing only 10 years, which is on the low side compared to others. That tells me that this is a guy who's been providing a lot of cooperation. So that's what I can sort of noodle out from reading between the lines. Chavez is in it up to his eyeballs, but he's facing relatively low time compared to the others. Overt Act number 20 on October 4th, day after my birthday. In text messages using the coded language, Iwamasa told defendant Placencia he needed to buy additional bottles of ketamine, stating, "I will need to get more cans of Dr. Pepper from you today. I can come to you to make it convenient." All right, let's check in on the let me check in on the chat. I see that you guys are still actively chatting away. I see the moderators are keeping everyone lined up. For those of you who are just joining me, I'm kind of keeping an eye out on this screen, which is why we may have a special visitor. I don't know. I'm waiting to see. But anyway, I want to just sort of periodically have to check back and forth from one screen to another, because when I'm looking at this document screen, it takes up everything and I can't see what's going on in the chat. All right, so back to the indictment. Overt act number 21. And remember, for conspiracy, it just takes one overt act, and we're up to number 21. Co-conspirator Iwamasa told Placencia that he had successfully injected victim MP with ketamine, noting, "I found the sweet spot, but trying different places led to running out of ketamine." So I guess they're just jabbing Perry just left and right wherever they can find a new spot. I mean, it's crazy what the picture that this paints is just surreal. Same day, in response to the text message above, Placencia advised he could get more ketamine to Iwamasa and said, "I have ideas on how to get consistent results." October 4th, same day. In response to that text message, Placencia stated he was currently receiving 4 bottles from his source, referring to co-conspirator Chavez. These bottles must not last long, and apparently they were just all day, every day. He was being injected by his domestic assistant. Placencia traveled on October 4th to Irvine to purchase 8 vials of liquid ketamine from Chavez. See, Chavez is at this point like the main source of all this. I mean, he's getting it from a wholesaler fraudulently, but it's all coming from him. So he's getting a relatively lenient deal under the circumstances. On October 4th, Placencia injected, so Dr. P, Placencia, is back over at Matthew Perry's house, injecting him with ketamine, and sold multiple vials to Iwamasa. See, this is just one day after the next. And as we will see, these injections get more extreme, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Number 26, October 4th, same day. Text messages back to Chavez. Placencia asks whether Chavez was having any trouble finding more ketamine. "In case this continues with this guy, I think we would best be served not having him look elsewhere." Placencia wanted to be his go-to. You see what they're saying here, guys? They're saying that this is a cash cow. They know that they've got him hooked. They know that he's deeply addicted, and they know that he's using a lot of this stuff, and they are making bank. They are making more and more and more money off of this cash cow. That's how they see him. And they don't give a damn about his health. These are medical doctors who are supposed to do no harm. That's the Hippocratic Oath. Yet they take this person who is in the depths of addiction, obviously in very, very bad health. And what are they doing? They're making it worse. They are facilitating making it worse for him. He needs help. He needs professional help. He needs to be hospitalized. These doctors presumably could hospitalize him, but they don't. They enable him, all for the purpose of lining their pockets. Reprehensible. Number 27 on October 4th, Chavez sent a text message to Placencia stating he was working on getting more ketamine. To obtain more ketamine to sell to Matthew Perry, Chavez submitted another order for 10 vials of ketamine from the second wholesaler. Still on October 4th, Chavez completed a, quote, "Know Your Customer" DEA questionnaire and submitted it to wholesale ketamine distributor 1, knowing that the document contained false statements, including Chavez responding no to the question, "Do you sell products to other practitioners?" No. Well, he's selling to Dr. P. So that was a lie. We're up to October 6th now. In response to personal servant Iwamasa advising defendant Placencia that he needed more because he only had one left. This is just 2 days later, and they're down to 1 vial. I mean, they are just going through this stuff like water. Had only had 1 left. Placencia traveled to Matthew Perry's residence and sold 1 or more vials of ketamine to co-conspirator Iwamasa in exchange for cash. This is tranquilizer. This is stuff that is anesthesia. And he's getting it just constantly, just pumped into his body by these vultures. Placencia sells ketamine to co-conspirator Iwamasa at 10:30 a.m. on a public street. So now we're doing street drug deals. October 7th, 2023. Iwamasa sent text messages to Placencia A medical doctor seeking more ketamine and asked if he could pay with something else besides cash because it's hard to get to the bank on the fly with all that's going on, which happens so fast now. Yeah, he's constantly shooting up Matthew Perry. And at 12:30 at night, I guess it is hard to get to the bank. October 7th now, 11:29 p.m. In response to the text messages from Iwamasa, Placencia confirms he's got 2 bottles of ketamine to sell, and they agreed to meet in Santa Monica, stating, "I'm at 3rd Street Promenade now, if you would like to meet now." Iwamasa replied back. He says he sent $3,000 by electronic payment and, quote, "I'm bringing 3 more, leaving now." Presumably that's 3,000 more in cash. Leaving now to meet on the street corner, October 8th at 12:30 a.m. Placencia meets with Iwamasa on a street corner in Santa Monica and sold Iwamasa ketamine in exchange for $6,000 in cash. Now we're up to October 9th after Chavez received a delivery from the wholesaler. Chavez sends a text message to Placencia stating, "Are we still meeting tomorrow? We got a shipment today, 1 box of now 10 vials. So on October the 9th, Placencia says, "Great. Yes, I'm probably going to come to you midday." So I told you that these locations will get more and more concerning. And now we've got Placencia injecting Matthew Perry with ketamine in a parking lot in Long Beach. My goodness. All right. On October 10th now, so I think he died at the end of October. So we're getting towards the middle of the month. Now you see the use is getting more. It's more and more and more. And it's truly spiraling out of control, probably beyond control at this point. Placencia met with co-conspirator Chavez in Irving, California, purchased 10 vials of ketamine, which he intended to sell to Matthew Perry. So they're getting it from the wholesaler, all specifically intended to go straight into Matthew Perry's veins. On October 10th, 2023, in text messages, Placencia and Iwamasa agreed to meet in Long Beach so that Placencia could transfer more ketamine. October 10th, Placencia meets Iwamasa and Matthew Perry in a public parking lot in Long Beach, where Placencia injected victim Matthew Perry with ketamine inside of a vehicle. This is supposed to be done in a medical setting, hospital, whatever, clinic at the doctor's office. Here we're in a public parking lot inside of a car. While there, defendant Placencia also provided additional vials to Iwamasa in exchange for a partial payment in cash. The next segment is Placencia continues to sell ketamine to Iwamasa and Matthew Perry. We're up to October 12th. In text messages, Iwamasa asks to purchase more ketamine from defendant and notes that he would pay Placencia the money owed for ketamine that the defendant Placencia had already provided. So on October 12th, Placencia traveled to Perry's residence to sell additional ketamine to Iwamasa and Matthew Perry, for which Iwamasa paid the defendant, Placencia, Dr. P, $21,500 in cash. There's a picture here in the indictment that doesn't look like $21,500 to me, but it's apparently a representative sample of some of the cash perhaps involved in this case. So he's getting $21,500 in cash. This is after injecting him in a parking lot. My goodness. October 12th, 2023, after defendant Placencia injected Matthew Perry with a large dose of ketamine that caused listen to this. Defendant Placencia injected Matthew Perry with a large dose of ketamine on October 12th that caused Matthew Perry to freeze up. Guess that's a seizure of some kind, and his blood pressure to significantly spike. So what do they do? They damn near kill him on October the 12th. Dr. Placencia tells Iwamasa something like, "Let's not do that again." But what do? They just act like nothing happened. He leaves additional vials of ketamine with Iwamasa so that it can be injected into Matthew Perry. I mean, this was if there was no red flags before, then this ought to have been a big one. They damn near killed him on October 12th. October 13th, in response to text messages, Placencia Act. I guess you're blinded by all this money. That's the only thing it's the only way I can explain it. October 13th, in response to a text messages from Placencia asking if co-conspirator Chavez would be interested in running a ketamine clinic with him, Chavez said, quote, interesting. And as long as we're doing things on the up and up, we can start ASAP. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right? Doing things on the up and up is what you're interested in now? As long as we are doing things on the up and up and we can start ASAP, all done legally without any shady stuff, having them come to clinic will ensure this. So now this Chavez is saying, well, we should probably be on the up and up, despite everything that's happened over the last several weeks. Incredible. On October 13th, 2023, in response to Placencia asking, quote, oh, so you don't agree with the method I'm currently doing? Chavez said, it's not what I think. It's what an entity like the California Medical Board would view it, or the DEA. Incredible. Now they're interested in doing it the right way, or at least one of them says maybe he is. But anyway, that doesn't stop them. There's too much money to be made, because on October 24th, despite less than a week earlier telling a patient at his clinic that Matthew Perry was too far gone and was spiraling in his addiction, Placencia placed an order for 10 vials of ketamine from wholesale ketamine distributor number one, so that Placencia could offer to sell that ketamine to Matthew Perry. This is worth listening to again. So Placencia at his own clinic, okay, apparently he says a week beforehand, he apparently has a conversation with a patient about Matthew Perry, which is problematic in and of itself. But according to this indictment, Dr. P made this statement that Matthew Perry was too far gone and spiraling in his addiction. So what does he do? Nevertheless, he places an order for 10 more vials of ketamine from the wholesaler so that he could sell that to Matthew Perry. On October 27th, in a text message, Placencia offered to sell additional ketamine to Iwamasa, stating, I know you mentioned taking a break. I have been stocking up in the meantime. I am not sure when you guys plan to resume, but in case it's when I'm out of town this weekend, I have left supplies with a nurse of mine, and I can always let her know the plan. I will be back in town Tuesday. Well, I wonder if this nurse ever was, in fact, roped into this. For her sake, I hope she wasn't. But he's offering to bring a nurse into this, have another co-conspirator to perpetrate this crime. Unbelievable. So now we're moving into the part. Let me check in on the chat real quick, and then we'll get into the part where Sangha and Fleming, we got two new players here. These two then start selling ketamine to Iwamasa and Matthew Perry. Want to say welcome and thanks to anybody who's just joining us. I see things are going great in the chat. You guys have, by the way, if you have some thoughts, I'm not able to see this live chat, but by all means, I will go back and I'll look at the later once the video processes and it's on replay. I'll go back and I'll look at the live chat. I like to look and see what you guys have to say, and see, like, if I weren't juggling multiple screens, I'd be able to point out good comments like this. See, Nosy Rosie had the same thought as me, right? The conversation with the patient at the clinic, that's perhaps a HIPAA violation. This is a very good question here. If they refuse to give Matthew Perry ketamine, how would his body react without the drug? I don't know, because I am not an expert on this. But these doctors presumably know the answer to that question, and they should have put the man in the hospital instead of doing what they did. This is insane. Absolutely insane. All right. So let's see what we can learn now from the rest of these allegations. So on October 10th, 2023, Iwamasa sends a text message to Fleming. So we back up a couple of weeks now. We're back to October the 10th. So it looks like Iwamasa is getting stuff from multiple sources. He's getting it from the two doctors, but now he's working Fleming and the ketamine queen. Okay, so Iwamasa sends a text message to Fleming asking to purchase ketamine. How much do you want per bottle? And what is the nice tip you want? So in response to that text message, Fleming says, perfect. I'll bring to you, getting price now. I need some upfront to pay when I pick it up and the rest when I deliver. Using the Signal encrypted messaging application, Fleming communicated with defendant Sangha, however you say that, the ketamine queen, about obtaining ketamine, stating, "Hi, Jazz, it's Eric. Let me know your Addy address. How many vials do you have availability?" So using the Signal encrypted app, Fleming and defendant Sangha, the queen, communicated about the type and price and how much she had available. Fleming told Iwamasa that he could obtain vials of ketamine for $300, and he sent a photograph, and he proposed selling in a requested $1,000 brokering fee. So this is a very different sort of arrangement. Here you're getting the ketamine through essentially a drug dealer and a source for it, right? So you got Fleming, according to this indictment, just operating as a, I guess, drug dealer to the stars in Hollywood. On October the 11th, using Signal, Sangha told Fleming that her ketamine was high quality and offered a sample of the drug for Matthew Perry to try, stating, quote, "It's unmarked, but it's amazing." Unmarked, but it's amazing. He take one and try it, and I have more if he likes. Fleming sent a screenshot of defendant Sangha's message referenced in Overt Act number 52 to co-conspirator Iwamasa, stating, "I just got this from my person. She only deals with high-end and celebs. If it were not great stuff, she would lose her business." Co-conspirator Fleming contacted Sangha to obtain that sample, and she told her he told her specifically it was intended for Matthew Perry. So they kept communicating on Signal. Co-conspirator Fleming advised Iwamasa that his, quote, hookup, that is Sangha, was able to get the kind that is used for intramuscular. I guarantee it's going to be amazing, and sent a photograph of unlabeled, unmarked, clear glass vials of ketamine to show Iwamasa, quote, what they look like. And I will zoom in on this because this is apparently a screenshot of the vials. You got no label. You won't have any idea what you're injecting your employer with or yourself. You just take the word of these drug dealers, and this is what it says. This is what they look like. She sells them all day. She won't go less than $250. Let me see if I can borrow it to buy one once he CB test, whatever that means. But if he likes it, which I'm confident he will, he has to pay me back. So this is a person or persons who are clearly in the business of dealing ketamine on a regular basis. October 12th, Fleming told Iwamasa that he was willing to facilitate the drug deal, but he needed to make money, stating, "I wouldn't do it if there wasn't a chance of me making some money for doing all this." Fleming drove Sangha to the stash house. Fleming drove to the stash house in North Hollywood and purchased a ketamine sample for Matthew Perry, which was contained inside an unlabeled, unmarked, clear glass vial with a blue cap. Fleming then drove to Matthew Perry's residence and delivered the sample, knowing that Iwamasa would be injecting Matthew Perry with the ketamine. So here we go. Sangha and Fleming sell 25 vials of ketamine on October 24th. Now we're up to 25 vials at a time. Fleming told Iwamasa that he would obtain as many vials of ketamine as requesting, stating, "Let me know how many and I'll confirm that she can get it. But as of now," she said, "she can fill any order." This woman is probably responsible for killing half of the overdosed individuals in the area. My goodness. Iwamasa told Fleming that he would purchase 25 vials, $5,500 at $220 plus $500 for logistics. So he's getting his finder's fee, I guess, out of that. Fleming drove to Matthew Perry's residence located in Los Angeles, collected cash from Iwamasa. Fleming drove to the stash house where he used that cash to buy 25 vials from the Queen. October 14th, he drove back to Matthew Perry's house delivered the ketamine to Iwamasa. So now we're getting late October 23rd, 2023. Iwamasa sent a text message to Fleming requesting to purchase more ketamine, stating, "We can do the same as last time again over the next 2 days." So they want to get another. Do they want to get another 25 vials over 2 days? This is insane. Fleming confirmed he could obtain more ketamine, stating it will be the same product. You want the same amount? Put the 5,500 together as soon as possible, and I'll come get it as soon as possible to get it all done tonight. Fleming traveled to Matthew Perry's residence and picked up approximately $6,000 in cash from Iwamasa, which would be used to pay defendant and for additional ketamine. So Sangha and co-conspirators sell Fleming. Sangha and co-conspirator Fleming sell ketamine that co-conspirator Iwamasa uses to inject Matthew Perry, killing him. So now we're up to the fatality. This is the end on October 24th. Not even a month after this all started, and after he's apparently just using more and more and more larger quantities of this every day. Based on information from Sangha, co-conspirator Fleming sent text message updates to co-conspirator Iwamasa about the delivery and timing of the ketamine. This is interesting. Let's see, based on information from Sangha, so she may be cooperating at least to some degree. In any event, based on that information, Fleming sent updates to Iwamasa about the delivery and timing, including stating that Sangha's ketamine source, which Sangha referred to as the master chef and the scientist, would make the supply available, and that the ketamine was on its way to our girl, referring Sangha. So Sangha is getting it from the master chef and the scientist, whoever that is. Fleming traveled on the 24th to the stash house. He got another 25 vials of ketamine for cash, and as part of that transaction, listen to this, guys. Listen to this. Sangha included ketamine lollipops as an add-on. She included ketamine lollipops as an add-on as a way of saying thank you to Matthew Perry for this large bulk order of 25 vials of ketamine. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Fleming traveled to Matthew Perry's residence with the ketamine referenced and delivered it to Iwamasa. Iwamasa administers at least, on the 24th, at least 6 shots to Matthew Perry. No wonder they're going through it so fast. 6 shots on the 24th. On the 25th, Sangha reached out to Fleming about anticipated future transfers of ketamine to Matthew Perry, stating, "Please let me know if you think there will be another round, because the scientist, he'll be gone as well. I'll have to know ahead of time to get that sorted out before we leave." So apparently Sangha and the scientist are going on some kind of travel somewhere, and they know that Matthew Perry is a cash cow, a big fish, and they want to make sure that they can get the future orders delivered, even though they're going to be going on vacation or whatever. So they're planning. See, they're just using Matthew Perry as a cash cow. That's it. It's all about the money. On October 25th, another 6 shots by Iwamasa. On the 26th, at least 6 shots to Matthew Perry. On the 27th, at least 6 shots. So we're doing lots of this on every single day after day after day after day. And on October 28th, using syringes provided by Dr. Placencia, Iwamasa injected victim Matthew Perry with at least 3 shots of ketamine he received from Fleming and Sangha, which resulted in the death of Matthew Perry. It's my understanding, guys, that the last one, it's been widely reported that Matthew Perry said something to the effect of, shoot me up with a big one and then get the swimming pool ready. And then the rest is, the sad history. But we're not done with this conspiracy. It's not done, because the Queen directs Fleming to delete evidence after learning about Matthew Perry's death. On October 28th, she learned about the death from news reports. So she calls Fleming using Signal to discuss them distancing themselves from selling ketamine to victim Matthew Perry, among other things, deleting digital evidence on their cell phones. She updated the setting on the signal to automatically delete her messages with Fleming and instructed him to delete all of our messages. And there you see they have it. Delete all of our messages. Yes. Things never disappear. I don't know why people think that they can just delete stuff off their phone and it's gone, because it's not. It's always there. It can be forensically retrieved. And here we have it. On October 30th, using Signal, Fleming sent the following text message to the Queen: please call. Got more info. Want to bounce ideas off of you. I'm 90% sure everyone is protected. I've never dealt with Matthew Perry, only his assistant. So the assistant was the enabler. Also, they are doing a 3-month tox screening. Does K, referring to ketamine, does K stay in your system, or is it immediately flushed out? So beginning on a date around March the 19th of 2024, from June 14th to 2024, this is some additional stuff. There's some pictures here about the stash house. It says the Ketamine Queen opened, leased, rented, and maintained a place called the Stash House. Had all this stuff. It says methamphetamine, ketamine. And here's a picture of some of the stuff they took out of her stash house. The rest of these counts are additional ways of charging some of the same conduct. So we won't go through all of the rest of this exactly, but say, like, for example, what they've done on counts 4 through 10, like the way this federal indictment is worded, this refers only to Dr. Placencia. So they list here that he's charged in count 4, what the date is, count 5, 6, 7, and 8, and what the dates on those are. Those are all intentionally distributing ketamine, and those are some of the same dates that we have just talked about. So this is how they're formally charged. And count 11 deals with the Queen herself on October 13th. Knowingly and intentionally distributed ketamine. Okay. Count 12. This is Sangha again. Knowingly and intentionally distributing ketamine. It's just multiple counts of the same stuff on different dates and different times. But it's all related to the stuff that we've just finished going over. And so the last bit of this indictment, well, this is worth talking about here. Count 17, Placencia. Dr. Placencia knowingly altered and falsified a document and record with intent to impede or obstruct an investigation. So this is the federal obstruction charge. Okay. So it says specifically in response to a legal request to produce documents, Placencia provided falsified document purportedly showing the medical treatment plan for Matthew Perry. And of course, it's all bullcrap, because Matthew Perry was not like a patient, right? But nevertheless, he fabricated some treatment plan for Perry, including a list of specific medical services provided, the maximum dose of the ketamine that he had purportedly provided, max dose being 60 milligrams in 24 hours, right? That's the max dose. And we saw some much bigger injections of that. And they say this in the indictment, when in fact, as Placencia then well knew, Placencia had injected Matthew Perry with ketamine doses far in excess of 60 milligrams, and Matthew Perry did not agree to purchase the listed medical treatments. Instead, he purchased bottles of ketamine directly from Placencia. Okay. And more of the same here for Placencia. In notes dated October 1st, 2023, Placencia claimed that quote, these are fake notes. Patient adamant, I leave ketamine solution for later use. Inform patient he should be monitored by a physician when undergoing treatment as a safety measure. Empty vials of used solution may have been placed in the waste bin. When in fact, as Placencia well knew, he offered to leave the ketamine vials with Matthew Perry, and he did in fact do so. In notes dated October 7th, Placencia claimed, quote, patient scheduled to meet for treatment session but was not present. When in fact, as Placencia knew at the time, he arranged to meet Iwamasa without MP Matthew Perry present at around midnight on the street corner. So he's basically trying to go back and backfill this and create some kind of treatment records for a treatment plan that was non-existent. So some of this stuff you've heard in the news. And then the last thing is a forfeiture allegation where they're trying to seize all the property associated with this. So when you see in the news media, you see a lot of the news media reports that Matthew Perry had been receiving from a medical professional, was receiving therapeutic doses of ketamine because it is an sort of an alternative treatment for depression and other things. So the question was, like, initially, if he was, why did he have so much in his system? Because it only has like a half-life of 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And, he had only had that as like a week before is when he supposedly had his professional treatment. So how did he wind up with so much on the day he died? So it's looking like to me is that the early reports that he had been taking legitimate ketamine type therapy treatment from a healthcare provider, that appears to be untrue. It appears to be that he was like day after day after day after day being shot up with more and more and more and more of ketamine. He's getting it from these two doctors over here, but at the same time, he's getting it from this drug dealer and the queen over here. And so, it's like each one of these sources of ketamine, they don't know that he's maybe getting it from somebody else too. So he's really like taking just an enormous amount of this stuff. It's really, really, really scary. And frankly, it's kind of sad. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, thank you all. I see some questions and some super chats. I think, so back to your question, Truth Seeker, I think that your question was the MD that witnessed him having a bad reaction and then leaving more. I think we covered that. That was listed in the indictment. Jennifer's question, and thanks for the super chat, Jennifer. Did he drown or die from upper respiratory failure from Casper in the chat? So it's my understanding that the autopsy reflected that he drowned. And I'm not a doctor, but if you drown, I think there would also be a respiratory failure that goes along with that. I'm sure if there's some medical professionals in here, they can perhaps weigh in on that, and we'll learn more. I haven't seen the autopsy report. It might be available out there, but of course, what happened is, to just in layman's terms, they put him under anesthesia. He was put under general anesthesia, whether that was the intention or not. That's what happened, and he was in the bathtub or in the pool, and he just slumps over or under. And you can't sleep in the bottom of a pool. You'll drown. Okay. This is the danger of not having somebody monitor you when you are getting anesthesia. And that's the bottom line. But thank you very much for the super chat. Question. What about the relatively new First Step legislation for the federal system? Any of these folks eligible for earlier release? I don't know. Thank you for the question. I don't know enough about that to give you a good answer, but it is something that I can look into. I can tell you that historically in the federal system, you're going to do the majority of your time. If you ask me, none of these people deserve any kind of special treatment. They're vultures. You can make a valid point that Matthew Perry has, he had some role in this himself. But these people in particular, the ones that I'm most mad at, honestly, are the doctors that have a legal and a moral duty as physicians to do no harm. Yet that's what they did. They knew that this was a man who was spiraling out of control. They knew he was basically on death's door, and yet they kept feeding him this poison over and over and over again on almost a daily basis because he was a cash cow. He was paying them lots of money in cash, and they loved it, and they were greedy. And that's what it all boils down to. All right. So, this is not the end of our discussion on Matthew Perry. I've got some stuff that I'm planning, and I'll give you more information about this in the next day or so, hopefully. But I'm going to do a follow-up on this. We're going to take a look at, well, for example, here is, and I'll just like share this with you and give you like a preview. Let's see here. Let me share the right screen. Bear with me. Present. Share screen. Here we go. Share this one. All right. So this is, if you look at the top, okay, this is also this is Iwamasa. This is his charging instrument, which is not an indictment. This is, here it says information. Okay. That means there's no grand jury. This is done by agreement with the parties. Okay. He bypasses the grand jury. And so what did he plead to? He pled to conspiracy to distribute ketamine resulting in serious bodily injury. And it goes through a lot of the same allegations, but this was it's not as thorough, but this was done. It simply bypassed the grand jury. It's signed only by the prosecutor. And so this is done with the agreement of the defendant, probably through his lawyer. And he's already pleaded guilty of this. I don't know what the sentencing recommendation is, so we don't know what exactly the plea deal is, but at some point in the future, he would have to be sentenced on this. But this is an information. So what I want to do in coming days is I want to do maybe a follow-up with this with some other lawyers or lawyers in here who can flesh out the law of conspiracy, maybe more about federal sentencing. As you might imagine, it's when I'm flying solo like today, it's hard for me to present the information and give good analysis. And so today was meant to be sort of an introduction to the subject matter and to the issue and to the indictment. And we're going to be talking more about this in coming days, probably with some individuals that you may already know if you've been here with us inside the law for any length of time. Now, this brings me to another point. I know a lot of people are asking me about the YSL, the Young Thug trial. When are we going to talk about everything that's happened? Well, we're going to do that tomorrow. And I got a very special announcement. Tomorrow, I'm going to have a very special guest with me. Her name is Courtney Kramer. If you know who Courtney Kramer is, I'm sure I'll be seeing it in the comments here momentarily. She is the attorney. She's running against Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. And she recently, as recently as, I guess, yesterday, she came out with a press release. And I could pull it up for you. We pull up my, got it on my social media feed here. But it's, she has promised that one of the first things that she's going to do if she beats Fani Willis is that she is going to dismiss the Young Thug YSL trial. She says that, here we go. Let me close this guy down. Share this tab instead. There it is. She promises to dismiss the case on day one if elected. I said, hopefully she will join me inside the law to tell the rest of her plans, and she will be here tomorrow. We're planning on 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll have additional information. She's going to tell us what else she's got planned should she win and how you can perhaps support her if you're inclined to do so as well. So that will be very interesting. And then we're going to have, I think we're going to have Rachel and Doug back with us for a recap, a weekly recap of everything that's happened in the last week in the Young Thug YSL trial, and also what we can look forward to moving forward. And again, a few days, a day or two or three, maybe after that, depending on timing, I talking to Ashley Merchant about coming in here and talking about federal conspiracies, getting more into Matthew Perry and some of this sad. So that's just a look ahead at what I'm hoping for in the days to come. It's always subject. I could get stuck in court all day, Monday or Tuesday, or Ashley could, or whatever that might cause us to have to rework that schedule. So that's why I don't have a set schedule. One day, if I can ever stop practicing law and maybe do this full time, then I can have a set schedule. But until I get there, I'm not there yet. But if you subscribe and you like and you help support the channel using Super Chat, Super Thanks, and the links below this video here, all that support might help one day move this from a part-time show, part-time channel to maybe something more full-time. But that is what we got looking forward over the next few days. And I hope to be able to give a little bit more information. I'm looking at 6 p.m. tomorrow, Sunday. I'll put an announcement out. For those of you who haven't joined the channel or subscribed to the channel, please do so, because I like to communicate with everybody through the community tab here on the channel. but also through social media as well. All right. Thank you guys, everybody, for spending part of your weekend with me. And let's just look, it's worth pointing out this, just how awful these people are. Look, this is a social media post. I meant to share this with you earlier. This is a social media post, a shocking Instagram post made by, and so what it says that pulling out old raver candy, hashtag rave to the grave. And she's got something around, I guess it's a bracelet of some kind. And then it says, pulling out old raver candy, rave to the grave. This ketamine is something that's used on the rave scene. This is a woman who just has no apparent conscience or concern about the harm that she's. And look at this guy. Looks like a professional doctor, right? And this guy with his lab coat. They're killers. They led to the man's death, and it's just such a sad thing. So, I appreciate you guys bearing with me while I just read through all of that. I tried to make it do so in a way that it was hopefully not too boring for you, but let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about all this, what you think about the subject matter. Let me know what you think about the channel. I want to say thank you to all of you for spending part of your Sunday with me. Thanks to the moderators. And I will see you back here next time inside the law.